Hello, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. We're dealing with sunshine and blicks and lights and everything. Plus, I have major allergies, so excuse me if I'm coughing or puffing or whatever happens today. But today's live stream is really motivated by recent discussions, maybe even debates on X or Twitter. And I wanted to address a couple of issues or bring them to your forefront, share my opinion on that, share some facts. We have videos, we have photos, we have everything to add to the discussion, but mainly to encourage you to do some research and see what your opinion is on those issues. And so, first and foremost, today is the first presidential debate. So let's talk about that first. And again, the discussion today, what I posted on X or Twitter today, was that I wonder why President Biden would be doing that, because he is a president, quite accomplished president, legitimate president, and he's debating somebody who is a convicted felon, which is a fact. Whether you want to debate it, you want to hate me for that, please do. I recently learned that hatred pays your bills, literally, at least online. So be my guest. You can comment and disagree. And if it's a constructive criticism, I will gladly respond. If it's just insults, then no, I'm not doing that. But he is a legitimate president who is accomplished, who is debating somebody who's a convicted felon and not yet an official candidate from the party, right? Which will happen right after he will receive his sentence or whatever the outcome will be of that court case. The outcome will come on July 11th, and then July 14th, he will be the nominee. So why is the debate happening now? That is what I wonder. Is it legitimizing Trump as a candidate before he is the candidate? I do understand that neither Biden nor Trump are appointed candidates. I totally agree. But one is president, another one is trying to be a dictator or is at least imitating a dictator. I even doubt that Trump wants to be a dictator because, given his background, given his life in New York, which we all knew, and I'm in New York, we kind of knew him before. So I kind of think he's intimidating or trying to be that man in power. But who is profiting today from this debate is media, and obviously CNN, because it's hosting it. There's so much discussion about it, which led me to a video that I saw by Michael Smerconish, who is the anchor at CNN, analyst, and who is very much affiliated with the debates and the preparation for it and the media hassle and bustle. So let's watch this video, and I wonder, what do you think about it?
With regard to tonight's debate, I think that what they say is less important than how they say it. In other words, you could almost tonight tune in and mute your television and come away with an idea as to who won. Because with regard to Trump, you're looking at his temperament. It's not so much what he says substantively. You know what he's going to say. And with regard to Biden, you want to know if he's got a senior moment. So it's how they say it more than what they say. And my hunch is that in light of the fact that all of these polls, national and battleground, are all within the margin of error, it would take something huge to change the trajectory of this race. In all likelihood, that won't happen.
So what do you think about it? Also, mind you, is Trump not having senior moments? Is he not having moments where he doesn't know what he does, where he goes, or what he has to say, or what he has to read, or he loses the teleprompter that he's allegedly reading at the moment? They both are at that age, right? So why are we really fixating on Biden's senior moments? And if it's CNN saying that, then what are we expecting Fox News to say, or Fox News to comment, or whatnot, right? So in my opinion, and I'm really curious what you think about it, it is about what they're saying. Because we have a president who knows what he's doing and what he has been doing for the past 3.5 years, what his plans are for the next 4 years. And we have somebody who is copy-pasting Project 2025, restricting women's rights, reproductive rights, and whatnot, right? And trying to intimidate a dictator, and constantly says that he admires dictators who are currently at war with countries, who are invading countries. So it is about what they're saying, and it is about how they're saying. And I really encourage you not to mute the television and just watch it as some sort of cartoon. And I wanted to quote today what White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre shared today on the way to Atlanta on Air Force One. She shared that the president is seeing today's debate as an opportunity to speak directly to millions of Americans that he takes very seriously. She also mentioned that he does it quite often, and he wants to really draw a distinction between the accomplishments of the Biden-Harris administration and also recognize what Republicans are saying and trying to do, with the special attention to reproductive rights, contraception, and IVF being on the line due to overturning Roe v. Wade and protection of Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security. Instead of giving the tax cuts to billionaires, president will lay out what's at stake. So to my question, why Democrats are doing it, or why President Biden is doing it, they see it as an opportunity to address the public and really list down the accomplishments and also plans for the future, and draw a distinction between the Democrats and Republicans and the plans for the country, right? So that's their opinion on that. She also mentioned that since the announcement of the new executive order restricting the south border crossing, the number of legal crossings has dropped by 40%. So President Biden will draw attention to that as well, because he has introduced that just 3 weeks ago. And she was asked by a reporter, which I found quite funny actually, if President Biden would be boosting tonight's performance with certain substances. And so she said, quote, "I wouldn't dignify this statement with an answer," end quote. So President arrived in Atlanta today. There are some pictures from the pool. He stepped down the Air Force One, and then he greeted multiple supporters who were standing there. You probably saw multiple videos that he was taking pictures and selfies with supporters there as well. The First Lady just attended in Atlanta a fundraiser where she mentioned that Joe is ready to go. He's prepared. He's confident. She said, "You know what a great debater he is." So that was just shared with the pool 2 minutes ago. So we'll see what will happen today. I'm just curious, do you support the debate this early? This is first time in history that we have one former president, one current president debating this early in the election. Neither is official appointee or the candidate of the party. And one is facing major legal issues. And so my question was, why are we legitimizing this conversation now? As to the rules of the debate, and also, again, the White House press secretary mentioned that it's not really up to administration. It was decided by CNN. So I saw multiple discussions on X, or Twitter, that somehow Democrats are muting mics and whatnot. This is CNN. This is the network that hosting it. They decide on that. So this is about the debate. Now, I really want to talk about Ukraine and what happened today in Brussels. European Union and Ukraine just signed an agreement with EU giving 1.9 billion euros to Ukraine to sustain the economy while fighting the war. And then I saw a tweet by the head of presidential office, Zelensky's office, which is Andrei Yermak, and he said today President Zelensky met with President of the European Council. We talked about the start of negotiations on EU accession. We are grateful and to all EU leaders for supporting the negotiations on our country's accession to EU, which I made a comment, and I'm going to make this comment now. If somebody is head of presidential office or president's office, why is this person, first of all, tweeting in we form? Why is this person thanking the EU delegation? Because really think about it in terms of your office, right, where you go to work. Let's say you're the head of this company, and then you have a secretary. right? And you enter a meeting and you had a successful meeting, and then the secretary will start thanking everybody for coming. Kind of weird. Maybe it's ethics issue, maybe it's some overstepping issue. For me, it was weird, and so I wanted to mention that. But again, this gives an opportunity to Ukraine and Ukrainian government to be more secure in the future, because again, we don't know what will happen in the US in terms of election, but those agreements and security agreements will certainly give more certainty to the government, but also to the people, that the fight first is recognized, supported, and seen. Which also leads me to NATO. Today, the Secretary General of NATO, Stoltenberg, met with Prime Minister of Estonia, Kaja Kallas, who is nominated to lead the EU, right? And I'm personally a supporter of hers because she's very outspoken. She's very well spoken also when it comes to issues with Russia. And so I wanted to share some clips from their press conference and what they have discussed. So first thing that I want to draw your attention to is where Secretary General addressed Putin right away up front when he started the press conference. So let's take a look.
President Putin believes that he can wait us out. It is important that we demonstrate that that's not the case, that we are ready to stand by Ukraine for the long haul. And therefore, I expect NATO leaders to agree that NATO will lead the coordination of security assistance and training for Ukraine, with a new NATO command in Wiesbaden to coordinate training and the provision of security assistance to Ukraine. And also that allied leaders will agree a long-term pledge of support to Ukraine. This will provide Ukraine with greater predictability for the long haul. I also expect leaders to send a clear message on Ukraine's path towards NATO membership,
which will be one of the main topics at the upcoming summit, celebrating the 75th anniversary of NATO, which will be in Washington, D.C. from the 9th to 11th of July. Ukraine will be, if not the top issue, but one of the main issues to discuss. And then in the second clip, that's where Secretary General addressed North Korea and Putin's supporters. So let's take a look.
Of course, also address our own deterrence and defense. We have agreed new, more ambitious defense plans. Allies are delivering more forces, high readiness, investing in high-end capabilities. And this year, 23 allies are going to invest more than 2% of GDP on defense, which is great progress compared to where we were just a few years ago. We will also address our global partners, especially our Indo-Pacific partners and the European Union. The war in Ukraine demonstrates that our security is not regional, it is global, because we see how Iran and North Korea are providing weapons, drones, ammunition to Russia to enable them to conduct a war of aggression against Ukraine. But we also see how China is propping up the Russian war economy, enabling Russia to support, not to conduct a war of aggression against Ukraine.
And by the way, the Indo-Pacific partners that he just mentioned are invited to the summit in Washington, D.C. Also, Zelensky will be there. So we can expect upcoming news. We also will expect the announcement of the NATO headquarters that will be opened in Ukraine to oversee the aid, which has been one of the biggest issues, or one of the biggest questions, where the aid is going to. So NATO will be stepping in, which has been announced today as well. So then Stoltenberg has addressed Estonia and how what role it plays within NATO, and also before giving the word to the Prime Minister of Estonia. So let's take a look.
NATO supports Estonia also in many different ways, with a multinational battle group in Tapa, led by the United Kingdom, helping to deter any aggression against Estonia. NATO fighter jets patrol the skies over Estonia, and Spain will soon deploy air defense battery and NASAM battery to your country to strengthen your air defenses. Then I would also like to add that the fact that we are now investing more across the whole alliance also make NATO stronger to reinforce Estonia if needed. We have several 100,000 troops on high readiness, and we also have Finland and Sweden as members. And of course, with Finland and Sweden as members of NATO, that has strengthened NATO. It has also made it much more easier to move equipment and forces into the Baltic region if needed.
And that is huge, because Baltic region would be coming next if, God forbid, Ukraine falls, right? And now we come to Kaja Kallas, who was really outspoken. Really make sure you don't miss her statement, because it's 10 seconds and 17 seconds, but she really addressed Russia's issue right away.
The price we pay in supporting Ukraine in its efforts to defeat Russian imperialism is little compared to what would follow if aggression pays off.
And then she mentioned Estonia's dedication to NATO and how much Estonia is supporting or investing in the defense. And what would be if all NATO members would be as dedicated?
Estonia is spending 0.25% of our GDP on military assistance to Ukraine over the next 4 years. If all the allies did the same, that would provide enough military assistance for Ukraine to win the war.
If only all allies did the same, but also if the allies would be allowing Ukraine to strike inside Russia, which would go beyond 100 kilometers. Because today, Kharkiv, which is my hometown, has been bombed again, has been hit again with the biggest bomb yet. And so this is seen and felt every single day. So when NATO is dragging feet, when US is dragging feet, Ukraine feels it. You know, and there is, honestly, I am from Kharkiv, and there is nothing that I can tell you of that hasn't been hit yet, including my parents' house, including my school I went to, including university my grandfather built, including the graves of my grandparents. So it's really felt every single day. So it's not shits and giggles. It's not something hypothetical. It's reality. So when something is being dragged out or being played out politically or being some sort of, a dance around, not provoking, here you have Russia including already now officially, right? It wasn't officially before, where Russia is, including Iran's help and China's help. But now you have North Koreans literally marching into Donbas region, Donetsk region, which is Ukraine. It's Ukrainian territory occupied by Russians. And so now officially you have a third country entering, and meanwhile NATO or US is still not provoking the conflict. So again, I wonder what you think about it, if you think that is the right way. I know people are scared, and I totally understand the fear, and I share your fear, but also inaction causes more damage than an action that is clearly communicating the message. And that's sort of my opinion on that. But let's talk about Russia today. Not Russia today as a channel, but Russia and everything that has been announced today. I really want to share more things that they are sharing, because I don't think that the Western demographic really, or Western population, knows what's going on in Russia, right? So for instance, today they announced that they are passing a new rule prohibiting women. Now pay attention. I have to read that. Wait a second. Passed a rule prohibiting not to have no children, meaning you will have to have kids, okay? Preferably boys. So, which truly aligns sort of with the MAGA movement and controlling women and whatnot, but really steps up a few notches, right? So they're passing a rule where you have to have children, and if you believe that not having children is okay, this will be seen as sort of demonic view, which will be illegal. So now you also have women who simply cannot have children, right? So how is that going to be handled? It's really pathetic and disgusting on many, many levels. So Russia is also not happy about Julian Assange release. But before we discuss him and his release and Russia not being happy and why it actually concerns them, I want to play a clip for you that was an answer to a question in the Department of State yesterday by the spokesperson, Matt Miller. So let's take a listen.
I do think it is important when we talk about Julian Assange to remind the world that the actions for which he was indicted and for which he has now pled guilty are actions that put the lives of our partners, our allies, and our diplomats at risk, especially those who work in dangerous places like Afghanistan and Iraq. This was some years ago now, almost 15 years ago, so I think the world has forgotten much of it. But if you recall, when WikiLeaks first disseminated and published State Department documents, State Department cables, they did so without redacting names. They just threw them out there for the world to see. And so the documents they published gave identifying information of individuals who were in contact with the State Department. That included opposition leaders, human rights activists around the world, whose positions were put in some danger because of their public disclosure. It also chilled the ability of American personnel to build relationships and have frank conversations with them. And at the time, those of you who covered the State Department at the time will probably remember that in the days leading up to that release, the State Department really had to scramble to get people out of danger, to move them out of harm's way. It was an extraordinary effort performed by dozens of government officials around the world, but that doesn't change the danger that those actions put innocent people all around the world in through no fault of their own. And that's, of course, not even to mention the further actions by WikiLeaks down the road to essentially serve as a conduit for Russian intelligence interfering in the U.S. presidential election.
Sorry, Matt.
And I'm really happy that he spent the time going right into that, because today it has been stated that Assange would be welcoming a pardon from President Biden, and Secretary or Press Secretary, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre addressed that question today during the briefing on the way to Atlanta, and she said that President is not even thinking about it, because how dare you, right? He caused clear damage to your own country, to his own country, which is United States, right? Acting as Russia's agent practically. And what does Russia do? Nothing, right? So he's detained. It's been 15 years, and then he admits his wrongdoing, and now Russia is pissed, and now they speak out that how dare he, admitting his wrongdoing, and this is all lies, and he is a hero and whatnot. So I really, before building an opinion, please dig deeper and read, right? Especially if you live in the United States, you see him as a hero, see what were the repercussions, what were the consequences of his actions, and then decide whether you see him as a hero or whatnot, right? And especially asking for a pardon. Insanity. And also, if we compare him, right, and what the difference is between the Western side of the world handling those issues, right? Those who clearly cause damage, and Russia itself, right? We think about Navalny. Where is Navalny now? Jailed and murdered. What did he do compared to Assange, right? Just spoke for democracy, ran for president, right? And where is he now, and how has he been treated? And now Russia is really feeling well or in position to speak out what is happening to Assange, right? So it's kind of weird. But speaking of Russia, perhaps recently you have seen that they have been stating that Ukraine has hit Crimea, hurting over 100 people, and also leading to death of several people as well. So there were rocket pieces that fell on the beach, right? And Russia has stated this is Ukraine that has been targeting civilians and whatnot. First of all, it's really undermining Ukraine's use of American weapons, especially ATACMS, which has been noted both by NATO and both by Pentagon that the usage is very calculated, and it's really targeting the military objects or military objects to hit. So, but today, German outlet Bild has actually analyzed what has happened, and I want to read it out for you. So they shared two pictures, right? And they said that ATACMS missile was aimed at a military facility. Facility, that's the word I was looking for earlier. And so, but it was shot down by Russian air defense just above the beach in Crimea. So at first, Russian Federation said that it had shot down ATACMS, but then abandoned this version and accused Ukraine of a deliberate attack. The beach is located 4 kilometers from the military airfield. But first and foremost, why the hell you have civilians 4 kilometers away from military facility, right? And if you have seen previous pictures where those what that military facility looked like and how close people were literally vacationing on the beach. And why are people vacationing on the beach? Why are they advertising it? It's occupied area to begin with. But here's second picture. And so Bild continues. So debris of Tor air defense missiles were found on the beach, which indicates the work of the Russian air defense system. Most of the debris fell into the sea perpendicular to the beach, indicating that the missile was headed for another target, but was shot down on approach. Only a small part of debris fell on the beach itself. Still, it was enough to hurt over 100 people and killing several people as well. But it's always easier to blame Ukraine. And, when it comes to Russia, lies are just normal occurrence every day. Right. Also, yesterday, it has been reported by several outlets that an airplane, right, official airplane of the Russian administration has been flying or has been arriving in New York City. And so everybody wondered what the reason behind it was. And so the reason behind it was revealed today. Whoops. Here we go. By Kiev Independent. They said that the Russian Interior Minister, Vladimir Kolokholtsev, arrived in New York on June 26 to participate in a UN summit of police chiefs, UN COPS 2024. It was said by ministry spokesperson Irina Volk, which is the Russian ministry spokesperson. And I wonder, in World War II, would UN also welcome Nazis and their military chiefs? Because this particular dude is responsible for murders, tortures, concentration camps. So would we be also seeking opinion of Nazis in the World War II times? And why was UN created, actually? So, a lot of questions, not many answers, especially when it comes to UN. I wonder what your opinion about that is as well. So, but let's end on a positive note. I know that everybody will be hitting to watch the debate very soon. It starts in just an hour and a bit. But today, Secretary Blinken at the Department of State had a special event where he honored former Secretaries of State Colin Powell and Madeleine Albright. And he dedicated rooms to them, right? And the naming ceremony was attended by both families and family members. And so, which was or could have been just one of those, administrative events and just regular sort of bureaucratic stuff, actually turned out to be quite touching and quite really heartfelt. And so I wanted to share a clip from Secretary Blinken's speech that I think is really important to listen to, and I doubt you will. So please tune in.
And one of those lessons is, and I think all of you here will appreciate it, get the right people around the table. The conference room next door, now the Albright room, is where some of the most consequential debates about U.S. foreign policy are going to be hashed out and have been hashed out. Maybe we get a dozen or so people around that table. When Colin and Madeleine held weighty discussions around the table, they didn't pick people who sat there based on hierarchy. They didn't pick them based on title. Instead, they actually sought out the people who knew something, and they both made a point of seeking out a diversity of views, expertise, backgrounds. They valued this inclusivity in no small part because each of them had, at times, been excluded from rooms, like these rooms, discussions like the ones we have here, or paths, simply because of who they were. In the 50s, Colin drove home to New York City from ROTC training in the South. He went through town after town after town where he had to use different services simply because he was black. He could die in a trench next to a white serviceman in the US Army, but in many places he couldn't eat next to a white customer in a restaurant or stay next to a white family in a motel. A few years after he made that trip, Madeleine moved to Chicago with her husband. Both set about looking for jobs at newspapers. Her husband found one quickly. Madeleine, who had edited her college newspaper at Wellesley and later worked for a paper in Missouri, was passed over time and again, often for men who were less qualified. When she told one editor that she was looking for a job, he asked her, "Why would you want to compete with your husband?" So, by the way, if someone said that to my wife, so this feeling that is imposed on you that maybe somehow you don't belong, that can be something that's incredibly hard to shake. Madeleine remembered walking down Mahogany Row, just along here, the corridor that runs the length of this floor, on the day that she was sworn in. And she said, "I had to pass by paintings of all those men with whiskers and suits, and I was worried that someone was going to call diplomatic security and have me escorted out." Both Madeleine and Colin knew that stronger teams come when people from all walks of life are made to feel that they belong. And that's why in their tenures as secretary, both worked relentlessly to bring in the most talented people, the most talented public servants from all across the country.
See, so dignity, professionalism, dedication could also be part of politics and should be part of politics. So I really want you to remember that when you watch tonight's debate, which will start in just about an hour. And I thank you for watching me here, and I see you next time. Thank you so much.